the next moment of my creative process, it was the first time that I started to use creativity to actually express something true and real ever. Throughout the paintings, the installations, the watercolor, the sand, the glitter, the digital illustrations, they were always these ways to just move. I was never trying to express something of me, of my life, until Among Your Worry. That's really the first moment that I expressed something true. I turned to art to communicate and visually depict my relationship to having lost my mom when I was young, and what that process of going from one way of holding her to another, to a completely new way. It was basically this old way of not really knowing that I could continue to hold her in my life, not knowing that that was an option, thinking that the only option was to just move forward, that her loss was just a loss, and it happened in the past, like that was just it. If it's only held as a hard, sad, empty, absent thing, the rest of life becomes really uninspiring to live. I kind of looked directly at that and was like, I gotta completely rearrange the way that I see this. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep hitting grief walls. I found that life did actually begin to feel lighter when, instead of her just being a loss, choosing to search for and seek out and collect memories of her and her energy, what she was like, who she actually was in her life that she had lived, and infuse that into my everyday so that we could begin to live life together in my choice too. And that's what this series depicts. I also wrote a poem with it, so each of the pieces were titled with a line of the poem, and it goes, within the blooming flowers and the leaves that fall quiet, through the soft light, passing through the trees, paving the way to be found in your heart and by your side, to see fully and rest easy among your worry and among your light. This moment is where healing really began to happen for me. And then my art really changed, my relationship to art, how I was creating, how I was depicting things, what I was depicting. Pretty cool to see. Something else that's really cool is that I ended up finding those sand and glitter paintings that I tore, and I found their match. So they reconnected, and I think that it's so cool because I didn't know it at the time, but it was really depicting that healing process occurring. And then my digital illustrations started depicting pieces of her. Tea and zubia and bamia, these Persian shirini, these Persian sweets, park days, Persian ice cream. And I also, goodness me, I self-published a book very impulsively a couple years ago because I had been working digitally for a very long time, and I was really needing something to be physical and more tangible, and I was very uncertain of what I was really creating at the time. It was a book of watercolory pages to invite the person who holds the book to be able to experience what I had experienced back when I was doing those watercolor drawings, and also introduce writing. I was writing bits and pieces of poetry, and I was working through how to communicate what I really wanted to communicate. I was still finding it. And then I kept drawing my surroundings for a while. I then started to draw more illustrative things with faces, basically personifying nature, and also objects and plants. I feel like this is the moment where I had felt very confused in terms of what I wanted art to live as, but I was still creating. I was still just producing, moving through work, moving through art. I would paint little pieces. I would do these clay, ephemeral, site-specific pieces. This is really where magic became a part of my life. where my mom's magic became a part of my life. I got pretty familiar with the ways that our minds work and story works, and how I used to feel like things were just coincidence, things like a jacaranda leaf from a tree falling into the palm of my hand just as I was talking about her. I used to think that was just, oh, okay, cool, but whatever. But then in this period of my life, I found so much beauty in just allowing myself to believe in the story, allowing myself to just choose to believe, instead of in coincidence, in magic, in her, and in the ways that if I feel her, it doesn't hurt to feel it. It doesn't hurt. It only heals. It only heals to allow her back into my life, allow her to take up space in a way that she can. And then it becomes fun, because it becomes the magic of coincidence, the magic of what can unfold when you just let it be fun, And then at this point, I really started thinking about narrative writing, fictional writing, films, and the ways that they hold such powerful stories that are completely made up, completely imagined. And I was thinking of all of the movies that I always felt so annoyed by or frustrated by, because it was so full of fear, and it was like some other story, and I'm like, why am I feeling this? Like, why am I being made to feel this way? And I was still continuing to process living with my mom's loss, and I reached a point where I was like, okay, if I'm this deeply creative, and if fictional storytelling is a thing, why can't I just write stories with my mom? And they become these otherworldly, fictional, imagined tales, just for myself, just for me to be able to have fun, enjoy, play, And I did, and I wrote these stories with her, and they were so magical and so deeply healing, just for myself to process and realize the power of my own creativity, the power of my own ability to tell stories, and heal even more and more deeply into what I could choose to continue on with throughout my life, to not be subject by a sad story, and what just a sad story becomes, and what life becomes when I'm able to transform it fully, when I'm able to choose to infuse the magic of wonder and beautiful creativity, all rooted in love, when it comes from a place of just being rooted in love. Once all of the work of the anger, the grief, the sadness is moved, and then what's left? Just the love. So I wrote this one story just last year called A Lavender Labyrinth. And that was the first story where I fully wrote in collaboration with my mom. And it just lived as this wonderful story of this beautiful new opening to my world. And I've always needed work to be more tangible, to take it out of the digital. I had the idea for a little seasonal series, because I'm always trying to also root back down into nature and the cycles as they pass. Everything that I create is always a return back into the present. So I created Into Winter. I think this work is it is the work that I feel the most proud of, in the sense that it feels like when I hold it for my own self, it is everything that I've ever wanted to create. And it exists in 4 parts, as with everything that I do. Back into the Find Your Footing days, I always want to take things and make them grow bigger. So this book it's a book of short stories as well as stream of consciousness writing. So the short stories are those mystical short stories that I write with my mom in collaboration. These fictional imagined tales where where I meet her in another dimension, and we talk about winter. We talk about the season. She gives advice, and we just chat. We just chat in these short stories, and then followed by illustrated pages in the style that I obsessively over the past few years been drawing within. And the drawings have to do with winter as well. And then there are these ink wash pages, which have that place for that mindful drawing moment back from the watercolor days. And then the rest are blank pages for journaling and sketching. It's literally just me trying to get concepts and ideas and the inner workings of my creative mind into physical reality, and brushing away the ideas that things need to be perfectly perfect before you can let them live and breathe and exist in people's hands, Because otherwise, at least for me, when I get so into it needs to be perfectly perfect before I let anyone breathe with it, sit with it, hold it, I think that there's a lot of magic that comes from creating, allowing it to live, and then correcting and continuously evolving things. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to make anything perfect, ever. It's always about the magic and the imperfections and allowing things to be what they are. It's just wild to me to hold something that feels so true and feels like finally something that I feel like, oh, okay, so that's why. That's where all of the creativity had been leading up until this point. And I think that's why I also felt a need to finally catalog what I've done so far, what I've created so far, how I ended up here, and the weight of what it means to have been able to finally accomplish something that doesn't feel like unraveling, which felt fragmented, like I still couldn't speak, like I still couldn't share, I still couldn't share the totality of the way that I see creativity, the way that I see the world, the way that I see healing and moving through things and transforming it. And now it can all live. And to let every moment be what it was, and every moment that continues to become what it will be. So that was everything. We got to the end, the beginning, the present. We got to the present moment. Finally. It'll all live right here. All that was can live right here. It's going to be truly incredible. See what else unfolds.